We are doing a 25k mile service on this Aston Martin Vantage, which is primarily just a clutch replacement. Just like any other car, we start with disassembly. First the under trays, and then the exhaust assembly. Wait a minute, where's the transmission? Oh, that's right, it's in the back, and it's connected with this giant torque tube. Unfortunately, the torque tube can't come off unless we remove one of our exhaust manifolds. All you have to do is lift up the bonnet, unplug a couple of O2 sensors, and remove all the nuts, move everything else in the way, and now we can pull the manifold out. Let's get to removing the transaxle. Same concept here. We're going to undo the cooler hoses, unbolt the axles, remove the mounts, and then unplug any connectors as well as the shifter cables. A lot of the unbolting and unplugging is done by feel on this car, since there's just not a lot of access. That's why they say mechanics are good with their hands. With the torque tube unbolted, all it takes is a couple of whacks and the transaxle can be dropped out the bottom. Now we just have to remove the torque tube itself. But first, we gotta take the drive shaft that's inside of the torque tube out. This is just held in with a snap ring, and it takes a little bit of finesse, but you can pull it right out. The torque tube itself bolts to the engine the same way a traditional transmission would. So just remove the bell housing bolts, and then you can yank it right off. Now things are looking more normal. It looks just like a standard clutch assembly, so we start by removing the pressure plate bolts, and then we can remove the pressure plate and the clutch assembly, and then the flywheel itself, which is held in with a couple more bolts. Since we're already here though, we're going to be replacing the pilot bearing and the rear main seal. To install the new rear main seal, I used a crank seal tool from a BMW N55 engine. You just have to make sure everything gets installed to the right depth. The pilot bearing just took a socket and a hammer, and same thing, we had to make sure it was at the right depth because it's a little bit recessed. Time for the new twin plate clutch setup. This came with a new flywheel, all from Velocity AP. With the flywheel torque down, we do have to compress the twin plate clutch and pressure plate assembly, so that way we can get it to sit flush with the flywheel before we bolt it down. We ended up making our own clutch alignment tool with some sockets to get everything lined up, but that worked out really well. Now with everything installed and torqued down, we can get the release bearing and slave cylinder replaced on the torque tube itself. Now this is a little bit different because of that new twin plate setup, so Velocity AP includes this with their kit. When installing the torque tube, it's always a great idea to get it in first with a couple of bolts, and then test fitting the drive shaft just to make sure everything lines up properly. Now we can reinstall the exhaust manifold with a new gasket and get the transaxle reinstalled. Now this took a lot of maneuvering around just to make sure we got the right angle to be able to slide it right in. We're almost at the home stretch. All we have to do now is hook up the shifter cables, the transaxle mounts, the axles themselves, the cooler lines, and then we can refill it with new fluid. With everything buttoned up, the clutch bled, all the fluids refilled, all that's left is to get out there and drive it. Follow along if you want to see what this Vantage looks like after we fix that wheel gap, and also to see some of our other projects that we're working on.